reopening. In Oregon, every county except Multnomah is either in phase 1 or has applied for it. So with that, how are small businesses doing right now? Our Pat Doris has a look at Clackamas County.
This is the third day of phase 1 reopening for Clackamas County. And based on the businesses that I've talked to and seen there, it looks like it's kind of a mixed bag. I talked with one restaurant owner who had their grand reopening Saturday night. They said it went very well, but that was partly because they have large patios outside and they were able to bring in a number of customers, but still keep everybody a safe distance apart. There are other businesses in downtown Lake Oswego, for example, that are still closed. There's one barbershop that's not going to be open until the 8th of June. There's an Irish pub that's not going to be open until the middle of June or maybe even early July. So it seems like businesses are sort of kind of moving slowly. And the restaurant owner told me partly that might be because if you can only have 50% of your regular customer volume in, but you have to bring in the whole staff, it may not make monetary sense to do that. So 3 days into it in Clackamas County, phase 1, I'd say mixed results.
Now, another example here, Goodwill has opened about a dozen of its stores in the last few weeks. Our Joe Ranieri is following this story for us and joins us live now. Joe, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good seeing you. Well, one thing you're going to notice as you walk through some of these Goodwill stores that opened a couple of weeks ago in a few locations is the new restrictions. Obviously, you walk through a grocery store, they're going to be having social distancing. Some of you might have to be wearing a mask, although a lot of grocery stores aren't requiring that, but that's not the case at Goodwill. They're not only requiring a face mask or face covering, they're also requiring you to have gloves. I went to the one along Northeast 122nd Avenue, not far from Marine Drive, earlier this morning, and it was packed. It was late in the morning, and it was tough to find a parking spot out there, and a lot of people were actually getting turned away because they didn't have either the gloves or the face coverings and masks. But that is one thing you're going to need to make sure you have if you're hoping to go to some of the Goodwills. And like you said, about a dozen have been open here in the last couple of weeks. They're starting to, hoping over the next few weeks, open a few more. Trying to make sure the ones they do open here shortly will be in smaller communities so they don't have to worry about a mass amount of people going in at one time.
Joe, you mentioned early on it's been packed. A lot of people showing up there. For stores that are back open, it sounds like business has been doing pretty well. Are there a lot of customers, a lot of donations?
A lot of donations, a lot of customers, and typically there's anywhere from 100 to 120 people dropping things off at different donation sites. At this specific spot I went to, like I said, off Northeast 122nd, and the spokesperson told me yesterday alone they saw 1,000 donations. They filled several of their 53-foot semi-trailers all with donations, and a lot of people, if they're not donating, they're going into the store, and because a lot of people haven't been able to go to some of the stores to do some shopping, and you go in there and you feel like it's the holidays. It's packed, and a lot of people are making sure they're giving themselves extra space as the restrictions are, and also you're going to notice as you walk through there might be a little bit of a line, so give yourself plenty of time if you're going to be going through there anytime soon.
Now, like a lot of other businesses, Goodwill laid off thousands of employees at the start of this pandemic. Now that stores are starting to reopen, though, after months of being closed, what's the overall attitude from employees and managers you spoke with? How are they doing right now?
As you can imagine, they're pretty excited to get back to work, get back to the workforce. Just a couple of months ago, Goodwill had to lay off 3,000 employees. Over the last couple of weeks, they've been able to bring a small amount, a very small, only about 250 have been rehired in the last few weeks as they started to open more of the stores. But a couple of people I spoke with are excited, of course, to get a paycheck, but they're also a little concerned because they're in that sector where they're around hundreds of people a day, and you don't know if someone might be sick or don't know what's happening around you. So yeah, as you can imagine, they're a little nervous, but also excited to get back to work. But everybody that I saw, the customers, the employees, are all exercising social distancing.
All right, we should all do them a favor, keep our social distance, also bring a mask when we show up to those stores. Joe, thank you so much for being on the show and answering our questions.
You bet.
Now, in light of the coronavirus crisis, what will shopping look like as time goes on? Vicki Nguyen has more about the steps major chains are taking to keep people safe.
Safety first in stores. That's the goal this week as hundreds more open across America. Tech giant Apple reopens 25 stores across half a dozen states. While some will only allow curbside pickup, others will allow in-store shopping with social distancing and cleanliness in mind. Customers will also have to wear masks, submit to temperature checks at the door, and answer health-related questions as part of a screening process for COVID-19 symptoms. Nordstrom has already reopened about 35 stores across the South, with more locations to follow. Under its new guidelines, the retailer will quarantine returned items for at least 24 hours and make sure customers know the rules as soon as they enter.
What we found in the stores that we have open is the most important person is that greeter at the door who explains to the customer what's going on, what they can expect. And we found that that's a really critical part of the customer experience.
The world's largest mall operator, Simon, announcing it will provide masks and hand sanitizer to shoppers.
They need to promote physical distancing and crowd control, mask usage within their store. They need to have hand sanitizer or wipes available. They need to ramp up cleaning and disinfecting practices, and they need to communicate. They need easy to read signs everywhere.
And grocery stores are making changes too. Shoppers at the nation's largest grocery chain, Kroger, will hear this.
Maintain a distance of 6 feet, approximately 2 cart lengths, from others when possible.
Kroger CEO Rodney McMullen said the company spent more than $700 million to increase wages, add safety measures, and improve technology for online orders and deliveries.
Early on, we started being in contact with retailers in China, Italy, Hong Kong, Singapore, and we started putting together what are the things that we need to do to keep our associates safe and our customers safe.
Behind the scenes, overhead cameras and sensors will count how many customers are in the store. The company shared its 48-page coronavirus blueprint online to help other businesses safely reopen with best practices for cleaning, curbside pickup, and emergency sick leave policies that encourage workers to stay home at the first sign of illness.
Sometimes it's good to put it out there so that everyone can benefit from this knowledge, and it sounds like that's what y'all are trying to do.
Anything that we can do to help get America back up and operating is something good for all of us.
And expect more options for a no-contact shopping experience. We first showed you this smart cart in February. Scan your items, and when it's time to check out, tap your credit card.
Enjoy your bananas.
Take care.
No need to wait in a busy checkout line. The company that makes it says it's seen a spike in demand since the pandemic. Analytics company SAS developed this heat mapping technology businesses can use to monitor room capacity and identify high-touch areas that may require more frequent cleaning. But with no federal mandates on how stores reopen, experts say shoppers should use their discretion about where to spend.
If you see a store that's not requiring masks, that doesn't have hand sanitizer, would you go in?
I personally would not go in. To me, that's a sign that they're not taking it seriously and they're needlessly putting people at risk.
A quick reminder here, you can send in your questions at any time. Just text us at the number on your screen, 503-226-5088. Still ahead, traveling to the Oregon coast, hotels and Airbnbs in some cities will be allowed to reopen tomorrow, but should you visit? And first, a question here before we go to break. Can coronavirus spread through drinking water? Great question. The answer here, the CDC says COVID-19 has not been detected in drinking water. Filtration and disinfection methods in water systems should remove the inactive virus.
Memorial Day weekend is the unofficial start of summer, which usually means heading to the pool or a water park. But is it safe during a pandemic? Let's connect the dots. Just in time for the holiday weekend, the CDC has issued guidelines for swimming pools during the coronavirus outbreak. It says there's no evidence COVID-19 can spread through water in pools, hot tubs, spas, or water play areas. It says the chemicals put in that water, like chlorine and bromine, inactivate the virus. But at public pools, it encourages users to wear face coverings when they're not swimming and to practice social distancing when lounging around. Pools aren't the only spot to take a dip. So how safe are rivers and lakes? That gets into slightly murkier territory. According to scientists, similar coronaviruses have been shown to survive in fresh water, at least temporarily. But according to the experts, in a large body of water, it wouldn't pose a risk because it would be diluted. When it comes to salt water, there's not a lot of research on whether COVID-19 can survive. Some researchers have raised concerns about, let's put this gently, wastewater. It's often found near beaches. But so far, testing of human waste has found the samples to not be infectious. Connecting the dots, I'm Stephanie Whitfield.
All good information. Speaking of beaches, we want to turn now to Oregon's coast. Tomorrow, several cities, including Cannon Beach and Seaside, are lifting their bans on short-term rentals. That means hotels and Airbnbs can start accepting guests again. But the governor is still asking people to stay home. So the question is, should you go? And how do you know if there's room? Maggie Vespa asked a group of people living in Cannon Beach for their advice.
Being outdoors and 6 feet apart is not as much of a concern. So if there's places to hike and there's places to go on the beach and they can get food to go and take it, down to the beach and eat it, that will be safe.
For people who have a favorite place to shop, try calling your favorite places to go, just like you would call your restaurant if you wanted to make a reservation, and see if they will accommodate you.
If it's an 80-degree day in Portland, that's the day that everybody wants to come, and especially if it's on the weekend. But if they can think about when they might be able to come when it's likely to be less busy here, to spread out the joy, spread out the business, and their experience might be less stressful.
Still to come here, does smoking worsen COVID-19 symptoms? We'll explain what a new study found. Thanks for sticking around with KGW Q&A. Do people who smoke or vape have a higher risk of getting severe coronavirus symptoms? Early studies show smokers who contract COVID-19 can get much sicker than non-smokers. Scientists at UC San Francisco found it nearly doubles the rate of disease progression. The president of the American Medical Association says heart and lung disease caused by smoking can weaken the body's response to COVID-19 too.
All of these factors are so interrelated, and certainly pre-COVID-19 they led to worse health outcomes, and now we have this new crisis on top of a crisis that we already had. You weren't safe in smoking and vaping pre-COVID-19, and you certainly are. Those risks continue during this pandemic.
A recent study claims simply talking can spread COVID-19. So is that true? Our Jason Puckett with our Verify team looked into it.
You may have seen the headlines that 1 minute of talking releases 1,000 droplets, or that loud talking could leave the virus in the air for up to 14 minutes. You asked us to find out where this was coming from and if it was true, so we're verifying. Can you spread COVID-19 just by talking? Our sources are the National Institute of Health, the CDC, and a scientific study from the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, or NIDDK. This study by the NIDDK measured the number of droplets that come out of our mouths when we speak and how long they linger in the air. Since droplets are known to spread COVID-19, the experiment wanted to find out if normal talking would cause them to spread. They found, quote, a substantial probability that normal speaking causes airborne virus transmission in confined environments. The NIH also recently released this video explanation of their findings. They use a green laser to highlight droplets in the air. First, they tested with a spray bottle. You see a lot of green specks. Then they test normal breathing, almost no droplets. Then they try talking.
Stay healthy.
All those specks show droplets in the air from talking. The NIH experiment and NIDDK study both back this idea, and when we asked the CDC, they also confirmed that speaking can spread contagious droplets. Okay, but what about how long it can stay in the air? Is it really 14 minutes? Well, the study did measure about 14 minutes, but that was in a controlled lab with no airflow. That number would drop in real-world settings. Bottom line, we can verify that COVID-19 can be spread just by talking. And all 4 of the agencies we sourced say these findings are a reason to wear a mask in public. Have more questions for us to look into? Send us an email. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
Now, since developing a vaccine can take several years, how optimistic are doctors when it comes to developing a COVID-19 vaccine? We asked NBC News medical contributor Dr. Nahid Badilia to weigh in.
You have to first develop that vaccine, find a target. You then have to test it for safety and efficacy, particularly in humans, and then you have to work towards manufacturing and distribution. So we've done wonders in this particular epidemic to actually develop those vaccines very quickly that could go into testing. The part that's delayed and the one that we can't do shortcuts on are the aspects of this where we test the efficacy in humans, the phase 2 and 3 trials, and we just make sure that the vaccines themselves do not then create the type of antibodies we just talked about that could hurt or make the disease worse in a person who's had it. And evidence sort of shows that potentially with some of these candidates, we might be able to do that, but we need to go through the trial so that when it's released to the public, it is as safe as possible and does what we think it should do.
Next, for parents and families, is your teen stressed out by this pandemic? We'll tell you about the signs of anxiety to look out for, plus what you can do to help. But first, let's get to another question. Are there any long-term health effects of COVID-19? The answer, we're still in the early stages here. But Dr. Claire Wheeler with OHSU says some patients who have recovered from the virus continue to have breathing issues. She also says COVID-19 can cause kidney damage. Thanks for staying here with us for KGW Q&A. Here's another one. What can parents do to help teens struggling with stress and anxiety during this pandemic? Marty Saul got some tips from the experts.
Teens went from enjoying school, hobbies, and friends to spending all their time cooped up at home. And many parents are realizing the coronavirus may be fueling anxiety.
We have to spend more time with our children than we ever did before. And we discovered that maybe we don't know them as well as we thought we did.
Some signs: constant fear or worry, physical problems like chronic headaches or stomach aches, a change in your child's personality such as irritability, difficulty sleeping, panic attacks, or withdrawing from activities.
Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go to college, or maybe I shouldn't pursue that major, or maybe I should change something, maybe I should downsize. These are the signs of withdrawing.
So how can you help? First, recognize that their lives are turned upside down, and anxiety is normal. Let them work through their feelings. Make sure they're getting enough exercise and sleep, and help them find creative ways to connect with their friends, like FaceTime or Zoom. Talk about their concerns a lot and offer positive feedback.
So catch them being good. Spend more time with your child, be more attentive to your child, and build on his or her strengths.
With ways to protect your teen's mental health during a crisis, I'm Marty Salt reporting.
Always so important to stay connected. We want to thank you so much for joining us for KGW Q&A. I'm Galen Etlin, and if you still have questions, our past stories may answer them for you. You can go straight to kgw.com/answers to see all of our past Q&As. Have a good night.